Amiga presents a Playguide video review. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hey there, welcome to another Lemon Amiga Play Guide and Review. In this week's show, we'll be checking out Panza Kickboxing, developed by Futura and published by Laricios in 1990. This was requested by StuAmigArt in Sydney, Australia for the Quantum Leap documentary, so it gives me great pleasure to provide this review for you. Begins with some great thematic music and a great logo, and this is just what you need to get yourself into the mood for some great kickboxing action. Pressing the fire button, the game will ask us to swap those discs over, the two discs in this game, and you can see a great picture of Andre Panza himself. And he endorsed this game, but more about him a little later. And you may be surprised to learn that this was the very first kickboxing game, or maybe Thai kickboxing as that may be known, the very first game in existence, and that differentiates itself from French boxing and American full contact boxing, and Team 17 released Full Contact, of course, not too long after this. But kickboxing, this is the first, the last and the only game which is remembered on the Amiga, and there aren't too many kickboxing games after this. We can choose to play a one-player game or a two-player match, and usually if you want the championship you'll have to change the control to Amiga, and then you can play the challenge. And in this game we can even select our controls, and we can actually select any one of 55 moves to be assigned to those various positions, of which there are 13 in the game. And as most of the best maneuvers are hidden away in these options, it's certainly best to customize your fighter. And again, 55 different moves is unique to this game, and 55 different moves isn't even in games like Street Fighter 2. At this stage we can choose our player, and the game gives us maybe 5 or 6 different players, all with virtually identical low ranked stats, and you will have to train up your boxer if you want to have anything where near good enough to take on the better guys later on. But for now, all of these stats really don't make much difference. It's the maneuvers and the chains of reactions that you have to memorize, and as long as you play well, really these stats should take care of themselves. If all those options weren't enough, we also get the options menu, where we can tweak a few more things in this game. We can also choose to have up to 12 rounds. Let's just leave that number on 3 rounds for right now, because of course I don't really want to be playing this for 12 rounds on this playthrough. And we can even load and save our stats as well once we've tweaked those, and that means that we can have different loads and saves going on. So we can save right now or never, save in progress or save always, and that will mean that when we return to the game, when we switch the game off, then those things will be reloaded and we can simply carry on from where we left off. Let's also take a moment just to rename our boxer, and that's always very nice because we have that keyboard, we don't have to use the joystick to do that. And now that we are satisfied, the only other option is to train our fighter, and training on offer is pretty difficult, and if you don't know what you're doing, like me, then you probably won't get very far with it. But yes, you can train with the skip rope and also the weights, which will improve our strength, and also the reflex test with these buttons that you have to kick, and they will disappear if you don't manage to hit those quickly enough. Having gained nothing during the training, let's just move on to the very first match and let's check this game out. In Panza kickboxing, it's important to stand back so that you don't merge with the other guy and simply walk straight through him, and that's not really an opportune thing to do. And I think you can also grab your opponent as well in this game, but for the most part you have to kick him, and sometimes you can punch him as well, but usually kickboxing is the art of kicking your opponent onto the mat. Perhaps the first trick to master is the art of turning around, and then you can always face that fighter, and that's also an opportune thing to do in this game, at least if you can do that. And you can see it gives you a time limit, so all these rounds are timed, you don't have all the time in the world, and as you score hits then the lights will start to disappear, and when all the lights go out on one side or the other, then that's the round won. And if you run out of time, then it's on to the next round. And of course, if all the lights are out at any stage, then that's a knockout. And there are no more rounds after that. But all the best moves are attained with knockouts. And if you simply trip up the other guy, then that probably won't attain anything as far as actual hits and score. You can see we're already losing against Dom Weak big time, so we'll just have to hope the bell rings to save our skin. Even though most of the big hitting moves are hidden away in the options, sometimes you might find one of those, and then we'll gain a classic countdown. If the guy doesn't stand, then that's a knockout. I think the pseudo-rotoscoped graphics taken from Andre Panza himself are brilliant, and I love the way the boxer crawls around and staggers around, and for its day this was really ahead of its time. No, that does not mean it is pizza time. It basically means that we have the trophy, we have won against Mr. Dom Weak. And that means we get to move on to the next rank of players, or we can take on a different player in the same rank. And comparing those stats, you can see our strength is very much higher. So let's move on and choose a different opponent. And in this case, the second highest boxer is CV Rocky. And so let's move up from him, and well, this guy looks pretty much like we are. Look at that resistance, 90%. It's going to take some time to knock him out, so let's use some training and let's see if we can gain some kind of advantage. Just like World Games, the weightlifting will take some mastery, and also I've seen players simply trying to hit these buttons in the same direction, hoping to get a quick score, and sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. So now that we've trained, let's have a go with Teddy, and let's try to get through another few rounds.
Go, go.
This game is endorsed by Panza, and this game was originally known as Panza's Kickboxing. He is a world-famous 6-times kickboxing world champion. He is 2-times French boxing world champion and 1-time American full contact world champion. Panza Kickboxing appeared on the Amiga, on the PC-DOS platform, on the Atari ST, on the CPC, on the TurboGrafx 16, and even on the TurboGrafx CD platform. And many people say that the other platforms are slightly better, but to my mind, the sound effects on the Amiga aren't very good. It's just a pity that the Amiga version doesn't have any music. The game was coded by Nicolas Massenat and Pascal Yarry. Nicolas and Pascal went on to Golden Eagle and also D-Day, which was released by Lariciels, and the graphics were created by Marco de Flores, who, well, he started with Turbo Cup in 1988 on the Amiga and moved on to recent games such as Splinter Cell and Assassin's Creed 2. The title music and the sound effects were created by Michael Wingradoff, and he moved on to the PlayStation with City of Lost Children and Escape or Die Trying. On the Amiga, it doesn't look like our stamina is any match for the other guy, and Big Fat Teddy is unfortunately too hard to hit. So you can see if we hold each other and wait a while, our stamina will slowly recover, but it looks like Teddy's recovered as well, so that's not really good. And unfortunately, we don't have any amazing flying hits and kicks and things like that, which would have really floored this guy in a second. So with this weedy set of initial controls that we have and a set of moves, it takes something special to get that guy on the ground. But you can see it takes something else to knock his hit points down even more than that, and we are on half a hit point at the moment, so we're going to have to try to beat the bell. The sign girl will also add a little bit of humour to the game, and of course she pulls funny faces because that's just the humour of the game. And so that's a floored defeat by us, suffered at our mercy, and I'm not sure, but I think that might even impart on our stats. At this point we can choose to fight another fighter, and you can see the prize money, well, that doesn't really make much difference. What we really want to do is to fight someone, and you can even fight one of the harder boxers, even Panza himself. the fact the player can save their progress up at any point is a great thing, and if only more games took advantage of that on the Amiga, and that's why you need the second disc, because the second disc is a DOS disc and then you can save onto that. But you can see the controls feel slightly laggy because we haven't tightened up our speed in our reactions yet, and they feel slightly heavy as well, but you can actually chain different maneuvers together into combos, and later on you'll need to get those combos together to score the maximum hits on your opponent and not just step straight through them like this. And so combos and different maneuvers are really appreciated. Of course, the 55 different maneuvers are really amazing in a game like this. Panza moved on to be the head of a sports company selling sports equipment and also the boss of the Panza gym. And if you want to join the Panza gym and become a trained kickboxer under Panza, well, you can still do that if you visit panzagym.com. And yes, the guy's still around and still fighting fit. And well, if you want to know what happened to this game, apparently it was renamed to avoid the royalties into Panza Kickboxer, and then to avoid even more royalties it was renamed again to Best of the Best Championship Karate, which was released on the Amiga in 1992. Panza admits he got virtually nothing from the game, but at least it has his name on it, and it will always be remembered for all time as Panza Kickboxing. And to some people, this was the first and maybe even the best kickboxing game which ever appeared. Taking a look at the magazine scores for this game, Amiga User International awarded it 74%, Dator magazine gave it 80%, Amiga Joker gave it 81%, StuAmigArt gave this game 82%, Acar gave it 85%, and Amiga Action gave Panza Kickboxing 87%. The highest score went to Joystick 10 magazine, who actually awarded this 98% in November 1990, and with 98% you would imagine that this is almost perfect. To get around the royalties, this game was re-released as Best of the Best Championship Karate, and unfortunately this game does not feature International Championship Karate like IK+. No, this is a kickboxing game where the guy wears boxing gloves and kicks people, so this is actually the best of the best kickboxing. And as you can see, the options screen is virtually identical, and it's the same way to set up the game and to train the player, and only a few changes have been made in this game, most of which the player won't even notice. Among the most obvious changes are a number of colour changes, and as we move into the gym once again, we will notice that the columns that the buttons are on are now blue, and that those are minute changes, and maybe we are standing in the middle of the room instead of to one side, maybe, I'm not sure, but those are very limited changes in this game, and of course those are minute changes to what they could have done, but I think this game moves a tiny little bit quicker than the original game. Maybe they have tuned up some of the options slightly and made the boxer slightly more responsive. So let's try again and fail, unfortunately, to try to master these options. And again, I've no idea what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's been a very long time since I played this game. Another aspect to mention is that the bottom half of the screen is devoted to the second player, and yes, you can have two players training together and even fighting against each other. So this was maybe Street Fighter 2 before its time, only you don't have so many or any special moves to mention. You don't have any magic and things like that. And you can see yet another change. The girl is now inside a box, and that's rather strange given the fact that she was alive and kicking in the previous version. They've decided to animate the girl, perhaps so as not to offend any ringside score girls. But you can see the action is faster on this particular playthrough, so I'm presuming that the action is faster in the game itself. Apart from a few different colours, this is virtually version 1.1 of the game, so anyone who loved Panza kickboxing should really check this game out. Panza kickboxing is also enhanced if you happen to have a half meg memory upgrade, and well, without that half meg you will only be able to use 13 controls and not program those, but with the half megabyte then that will open out the full 55 control option, and you can tweak those and change those. So given the fact that you really need the full megabyte, I readily recommend playing these games with the full megabyte, and then you get all the features. For some reason the referee in this game doesn't seem to be shouting and making too much of a fuss, and maybe they got rid of the sound effects. But you can see chaining maneuvers together is really fun, and you can get lots of maneuvers on target when you start chaining those together. Thank you, StuAmigArt, for this recommendation of a game that we all played, or certainly I did back in the day, and it's great to review this game. So thank you once again for reviewing another Lemon Amiga play guide and review. Thank you.